When I was 4 years old, a fortune teller said I would bring misfortune to my parents. So they sent me away to live on a remote estate and never visited me again, not even once in 10 years. When I was 14, they finally brought me back home, only to marry me off. My elder sister laughed and said, "A dull girl marrying a sickly man. What a perfect match." My parents said coldly, "If this engagement could be broken, you wouldn't even be worthy to carry your sister's shoes. Once you're married, you're no longer our concern. Don't come back unless absolutely necessary." Only one person held my hand that day and taught me to write my own name. He guided my fingers across the paper, saying softly, "A woman too must hold herself with dignity, live with self-respect, strive with courage, and rise with strength." Chapter 1. I had lived on that estate for so long that I could barely remember what my parents looked like. Nanny Lou often reminded me that I was the second daughter of the Wong family, born legitimate, destined for a noble life, if not for that cursed fortune teller who ruined everything. Each time she mentioned it, her eyes turned red with anger. She'd mutter words like heartless devils and black-hearted cowards under her breath, though she always tried not to curse in front of me. I'd just lean against her side, smiling up at the endless sky, counting the days until my brother came back. He always brought me little wonders from the outside world. The estate was far, so far from the capital that when I was first sent there, the carriage ride took several days. Once I arrived, a few fierce old women stood guard at the gate and said, "By the master and madam's orders, you are not to step outside." So I grew up within those walls, confined for 10 long years. I couldn't read, I couldn't recite poems or play the zither. I didn't even know how to cook, but Nanny Lou always praised me for being obedient, gentle, and said I grew the most beautiful flowers. She'd say I was the best girl under heaven. My brother agreed. He said I was the best sister in the world. He wasn't my blood brother. He was Nanny Lou's son, who had come with her when she was assigned to care for me. Unlike me, he wasn't confined by any rules. He went hunting in the nearby mountains, later joined a merchant caravan as a guard, and now had a wife and son in a nearby village. His wife was the daughter of his old hunting master. They loved each other dearly. "Nanny, brother said he'd be back in a few days, right? He's been gone for over a month. Yes, it's about time." I looked up at the vast blue sky. It should have felt endless, but trapped within those walls, it looked terribly small. He used to tell me stories of great rivers and mountains, of bustling streets and festivals, of food stalls and curious trinkets. 10 years had passed before I saw him again. My parents never visited, never sent a letter. Everything I ate and wore came from the estate's own harvest. It wasn't luxurious, but I was never starved or frozen. When I was little, I didn't understand what it meant to bring misfortune to one's parents. As I grew older, I overheard the servants whisper that I was a cursed star, someone who would harm those close to her. People have a natural instinct to avoid disaster. So my family stayed away. It hurt at first, but the pain dulled with time. After all, I still had Nanny Lou. And my brother. When my brother went that year, he brought many rare things with him. One of them was a dying camellia. He called it 18 scholars, a poetic name I couldn't understand. I only thought it looked pitiful, so I carefully trimmed its roots, changed its soil, watered it, and placed it by the window. I'd gently wipe its withered leaves each day, praying it would sprout again. "Nanny, look, it's alive!" I pulled her over excitedly. "Tell brother. Tell him I saved the flower he brought." Nanny Lou smiled through red-rimmed eyes. "I'll be back soon. Be good while I'm gone." I had once tried to sneak outside. They found me, dragged me back, and though they didn't punish me, they beat Nanny Lou until she could barely move. I couldn't fight them. So after that, I never tried to run away again, because I learned that if I made a mistake, she would suffer for it. When people from the Wong family finally came to fetch me, the camellia was lush and green again. The messenger spoke many sweet words, how my parents missed me, how they wanted me back, but I knew she was lying. I might be uneducated, but I wasn't stupid. Still, Nanny Lou wept with joy, thinking my hardships were finally over. I couldn't bear to tell her that I was simply going from one cage into another, so I didn't let her come with me. "Miss, why not? Brother has to work far away, and sister-in-law is expecting again. My little nephew needs care. I'll be fine, Nanny. Once I settle down, I'll send for you and brother to join me in the capital. When I climbed into the carriage that day, I smiled brightly, as if excited to go home. Truly, I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. But once the carriage started moving, I looked at the camellia in the corner, and tears poured down uncontrollably. Would I ever see Nanny Lou and brother again in this lifetime? The journey back to the capital was as long and exhausting as the one that had sent me away years ago. By the time we arrived, I was too tired to feel joy or fear. There was no warm welcome, no servants bowing respectfully, no parents waiting at the gate. When I was led to my mother's quarters, she was dressed in fine silks and jewels, her expression poised and dignified. Beside her stood a charming young woman, pouting sweetly and tugging at her sleeve. "Mother, please, say yes, just this once." My mother smiled tenderly, touching the girl's cheek. All right. Tomorrow I'll have the tailor come and take your measurements." "Thank you, Mother. You're the best." They were so absorbed in their little act of affection that it was as if I didn't exist. I stood quietly to the side, silent as a shadow. I had thought I might feel something, grief perhaps, or bitterness. But there was nothing. Just a hollow calm. After all, I had survived 10 years without their love. I didn't need it now. "Mother," the young woman asked, turning toward me, "is she my sister?" She looked me up and down, her gaze dripping with disdain. I wore plain cotton clothes, new yes, but cheap compared to her shimmering silks. My mother finally glanced at me. One look, and her brows knitted as if my very presence offended her. "Yes," she said flatly. "She's your sister." "Mother," I whispered. "Sister." "Enough," my mother interrupted. "Dana, take her away. Is there still an empty courtyard beside Yukshin's?" "Madam," Dana replied, "the courtyard beside the eldest Mrs. residence is already occupied by the cousin. But there's an empty one near Tom Garden." "Then put her there," Mother said indifferently. "Dana, see to it." I didn't know what or where Tom Garden was. But it didn't matter. I had no right to choose. Mother didn't care for me. My sister looked down on me, and even the maid, Dana, treated me with forced politeness. When I arrived at Tom Garden, I learned that it housed the illegitimate daughters of my father. The courtyard they gave me was small and musty, with 3 narrow rooms that smelled of damp wood. While Dana ordered the servants to clean up, I stood quietly in the yard, holding my small bundle. Some girls peeked at me from a distance, whispering, then quickly disappeared. No one invited me in for tea. When the cleaning was done, Dana said, "Everything's ready, second miss." "Thank you," I replied softly. The rooms were plain, one could call them simple, or simply poor. But it didn't matter. I was used to worse. Better to stay quiet and invisible than to anger anyone. Dana later brought 2 maids and 1 old servant woman, saying they were to attend to me. But I could tell from their eyes, they didn't want to be here. When I sat waiting for tea, none came. Instead, I overheard whispers outside the door. I heard, "She's cursed. Anyone close to her will die. I'm not staying here. What if she kills me in my sleep?" "Me neither. I'm leaving." The 2 maids ran off. Only the old servant entered, bowing slightly. "Miss, would you like some water?" "No," I said gently, "but please bring my belongings from the carriage. There's a potted camellia. Be careful with it." "Yes, miss." Soon another maid came in, a round-faced girl with kind eyes. "This servant is April. Greetings to Miss." "No need for formality, April," I said. "Please fetch some water for me. I'd like to wash up." I was parched and starving, but my mother hadn't even offered me a sip of tea. "Yes, miss." April was quick. She brought tea and later returned with pastries and fruit. When the camellia was finally carried in and my bath prepared, I washed and changed. April helped dry my hair, her voice gentle. "Miss, your hair is so soft and beautiful." I smiled, thinking of Nanny Lou and how she'd cared for my hair all those years. There was no welcome banquet, no money, no gifts. I ate the same simple food as the other girls of Tom Garden. Nothing special. Everyone in the mansion knew. The legitimate second daughter of the Wong family was unloved, unwanted, and invisible. But I didn't mind. Brother had given me 20 taels of silver. If I lived frugally, that would last a long time, so I waited quietly, for whatever fate planned next. 2 weeks later, April brought me my monthly allowance, 5 taels of silver. I smiled happily. If I saved carefully, I could buy a few acres of land in the countryside someday. A small house. A safe place of my own. April reminded me to give out one tael as tips for the servants. For who? I asked. Not us, miss, she explained. For the others, like the kitchen, the storeroom, the steward's office, and the madam's servants. She gave me a pitying look. I understood. If I didn't pay them off, they'd make my life difficult. Cold meals, no hot water, spoiled supplies. So I handed her a tael, my heart aching. The other maid rarely appeared. The old servant, Madame Huang, spoke little and worked quietly. April was my only comfort, diligent, clever, and loyal. Life was dull. Back on the estate, I could at least grow flowers. Here I had nothing to do. I once tried to speak to my half-sisters. They would scatter the moment they saw me, whispering and shutting their doors. They despised me, feared me. So I stayed in my courtyard, talking only to my camellia. Its leaves had turned glossy again, and it was thriving. That was enough to make me smile. One afternoon, Dana arrived with several boxes of silk and jewelry. That's when I knew. My family finally remembered me, but only because they needed something. Madam has been busy, Dana said sweetly. She asked me to bring these for you. I nodded, expressionless. Tomorrow, Dana added, you must rise early and dress beautifully. I'll come fetch you myself. That night, April whispered to me, Miss, I heard Madam brought you back to replace the eldest miss. You're to marry into the Gu family instead of her. The Gu family's third son, Ethan Gu, was once a prodigy. He topped the imperial exams, was named Scholar of the Realm, and even earned the Emperor's praise. But 2 years ago, he was poisoned while saving His Majesty during a royal hunt. He's been weak and crippled ever since, rarely leaves his home. When he fell ill, April continued, the Gu family came to withdraw the engagement, but Madam and Master refused. The eldest miss refused to marry him, so they brought you back. I understood. I wasn't family, they just needed a substitute. The next morning, my elder sister, Claire Wong, summoned me. Her face was cold and proud. Can you read? She demanded. I shook my head. Can you play the zither, paint, write poetry? I shook my head again. Her lips twisted in disgust. You can't even recite the 3-character classic, an ancient primer for children? No, she snatched a ruler from the table. Then stretch out your hand. I hesitated. Did you not hear me? She snapped. I slowly raised my hand. The ruler came down with a sharp crack. Pain exploded across my palm. I bit my lip, tears stinging my eyes. You don't even know the basics of learning, she scolded. I couldn't help it. I looked up and said softly, I can't read because no one ever taught me. You sent me away when I was 4. If someone had taught me, I would have learned. Why should I be punished for their neglect? How dare you talk back to me? Claire lunged at me, reaching for my hand again. I stumbled backward and bolted out the door. Catch her. Don't let her run. I ran as fast as I could, tears blurring my vision. I wasn't afraid of causing a scene. I wasn't wrong. Was it my fault I'd been born under a cursed star? Had anyone asked me whether I wanted to be born into this family? Her voice screeched from behind. Yulan Wang, you'll regret this. I hated the sound of her voice. So much for being a refined young lady. When I finally reached Tong Garden, April was waiting anxiously at the gate. Miss, she gasped when she saw my tear-streaked face. What happened? She hit me. April's expression darkened. That heartless woman, she's angry she must marry a sick man, so she takes it out on you. She fetched ice to soothe my swollen hands, but the bruises only deepened. That night, the pain kept me awake. April, I'm thirsty, I murmured. She brought me water, then froze, touching my forehead. Miss, you're burning up? I'll get a doctor. But no doctor came. By morning, I was drenched in sweat, weak but alive. The bruises on my palm had turned dark purple. I asked April to make me some porridge. When I finished eating, Dana arrived again. Her tone was sharp. Second miss, you're not dressed yet? We must prepare your hair. I sighed softly. If I refused, they would punish April instead. So I sat obediently while she pinned up my hair into an elaborate style that didn't suit me. The ornate hairpins felt heavy. Fake. There, she said. You look lovely. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Later, I was taken to the front hall but not allowed to enter. I waited in a small side room until summoned. When I finally stepped in, laughter filled the air. I felt dozens of eyes turned toward me, some curious, most mocking. Among them sat a man in a wheelchair. He was pale but handsome in a quiet way, his dark eyes calm and gentle. When he looked at me, there was something unexpected there. Pity, perhaps, or sorrow. My mind went blank. Then I heard my mother's voice. "What are you standing there for? Come greet our guests." I stepped forward and bowed. The Gu family elders murmured politely, but without warmth. "That's enough," one said. "No need for ceremony." They didn't like me. I could feel it. Then a soft male voice spoke. "Miss Wong?" I looked up. It was him, Ethan Gu. "May I speak with you alone?" My mother smiled eagerly. "Of course, Dana. Take them to the garden pavilion. The flowers are lovely this time of year." So I followed him to the pavilion. A younger servant pushed his chair, glancing at me with curiosity. "Brother, she looks so young. Are you really going to marry her?" Ethan didn't answer. When we arrived, he dismissed everyone. "Sit," he said. I obeyed. He didn't speak, so neither did I. After a while he asked, "That dress, was it newly made?" "Yes, Mother sent it yesterday," he smiled faintly. "And how old are you, Miss Wang?" 14 as of March. "I'm 22. "Oh," I tilted my head. "You're the same age as my brother." "You grew up in the countryside?" "Yes. Can you read?" "No." I hesitated, then showed him my injured palm. My sister wanted me to recite the three-character classic. When I couldn't, she beat me with a ruler. He looked down at my swollen hand, his expression darkening. "If you can, could you read it to me?" I asked earnestly. "Next time she asks, I'll know it, and she won't be able to hit me again." That wasn't the real reason I asked. I just wanted him to know how cruel my sister was. "Didn't you have a tutor before?" "No, the women who watched me couldn't read either." Then I asked softly, "Are you really here to marry me?" "I'm still a child. Nanny used to say a girl isn't grown until she reaches 15. Ethan's gaze softened. "And what do you think of me, Miss Wang? Would you be willing to marry someone like me?" I thought for a long moment before answering. "If I marry, can I go outside?" "Will you teach me to read? Will you hit me? Can I bring my nanny and brother to live with us?" He chuckled. "You know I'm crippled, don't you? The physicians say I may not live long without the antidote." "I didn't know that," I said honestly. "No one told me." He opened a small porcelain box and handed it to me. "This is medicine for bruises. I used it before. Take it." I accepted it gratefully. "Thank you, Lord Gu." "You needn't thank me." He studied me for a long while, then said quietly, "This meeting is for the marriage arrangement. If you truly don't wish to marry me, I'll speak to my elders and withdraw." I held the medicine tightly. "I can't refuse. My parents brought me back for this. If you reject me, they'll send me away again, or sell me to someone old and cruel." He looked at me sadly. "So you would accept this marriage out of fear?" "Fear and reason," I said softly. "At least with you I might have a life. You seem kind." Tears welled in my eyes as I smiled faintly. "If you don't have someone else in your heart, please marry me. I won't eat much or demand fine clothes. I can't play instruments or recite poems, but I can grow flowers. Every plant I care for thrives." Ethan Gu was silent for a long time. Then he stood, or tried to. "If you're willing," he said at last, "then I'll marry you. And before I die, I'll teach you to read, and make sure you have a life of your own." My vision blurred with tears. "Then promise me you'll live longer," I whispered, smiling through them. "Find that antidote. Live to 100. After that day in the garden pavilion, the Gu family sent word that they accepted the proposal. The engagement was officially set. When the servants of the Wang residence heard the news, the whispers spread like wildfire. The cursed girl's luck never ends. To marry into the Gu family, even if he's crippled, it's still better than starving in Tong Garden. She won't last long. That sick scholar will die soon anyway. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I simply asked April to clean the camellia leaves and repot the plant before we left. The day the engagement gifts arrived, I was called to the front hall again. Mother sat on the couch, her expression unreadable. My sister stood beside her, eyes cold, lips tight. "Yulan," my mother said slowly, "the Gu family has agreed to the match. Be grateful. From now on, you'll have food, clothing, and a husband." "Yes, mother." "Remember," she continued, "don't speak too much. Don't embarrass the family. The Gu family has power in court, and though their son is ill, he still holds the emperor's favor. Do you understand?" "I understand." My sister snorted. "If it weren't for you, I'd be the one marrying into the Gu family. What a waste." I wanted to tell her that if she envied me, I'd gladly trade places. But I said nothing. When the engagement papers were signed, I bowed 3 times. Mother didn't even look at me. The only person who smiled that day was April. "Miss," she whispered, "the young master truly seems different. Maybe your fate isn't so bad after all." I smiled faintly. Maybe. Chapter 2. The wedding came faster than I had imagined. The ceremony was simple, almost cold. Because of Ethan Gu's frail health, the families agreed to keep it modest. There were no drums, no lanterns, no laughter echoing through the streets. Even the bridal sedan was plain. Still, April wept as she helped me into my wedding dress. "Miss, you look so beautiful. Your nanny and brother would be so proud." "Don't cry," I said softly. "I promised I wouldn't make you worry." When the red veil came down, the world turned warm and hazy. I could hear the distant sound of gongs, though it was faint and lonely. As the sedan rocked down the road, I clutched the camellia pot in my lap and whispered to it, "Let's hope the Gu family isn't another cage." When I reached the Gu residence, I smelled medicine and incense before I even stepped down. Ethan was waiting in the main hall, seated in his wheelchair. He wore a pale blue robe, his face calm and composed. When they placed my hand in his, he murmured, "You're trembling." "I'm nervous," I admitted quietly. "You don't need to be." He lifted the red veil himself, and for a brief moment I saw warmth in his eyes. "You look better than I imagined." I almost laughed. "You too, my lord." The ceremony ended quickly. There was no wedding banquet, just a light meal shared in silence. That night the maid helped me change into plain sleeping robes and left the room. When Ethan entered, I rose awkwardly. He waved his hand. "You can rest. I won't touch you. My health wouldn't allow it anyway." I hesitated. Then, "Should I sleep outside?" He gave a faint smile. "No, stay. You're my wife now." So I lay down beside him. He turned his face to the wall, coughing quietly. For a long time neither of us spoke. Then I whispered, "Lord Gu, thank you for choosing me." He didn't reply, but I thought I saw the corners of his lips move slightly upward before he fell asleep. Days in the Gu residence passed quietly. Too quietly. No one scolded me, but no one spoke warmly either. The servants obeyed out of duty, not respect. They called me second madam. The title sounded elegant, but it carried no weight. Ethan's mother, Lady Gu, was polite but distant. She often said to me, "Take care of your husband. Don't trouble him. Don't speak unless asked." I followed every rule, spoke gently, moved quietly. Every morning I helped Ethan wash and dress. He never complained, even when his legs ached so much that sweat dripped down his face. He never raised his voice, never hit anyone. Sometimes he'd read aloud for me in the evenings. His voice was soft and steady, like spring water running through stones. One night, I asked timidly, "Can I try writing my name?" He handed me a brush, guiding my fingers like before. Our hands brushed lightly and I froze. His palm was warm, steady. "Try again," he said gently. "Not so tight. Let the brush flow with your breath." I tried again and again. After half an hour, the page was covered in clumsy strokes. He chuckled softly. "That last one almost looks right." "Almost? Yes, a bit stubborn. Like you." I laughed before I could stop myself. It was the first time I had laughed freely in years. A month after the wedding, the Gu household began to whisper again. Some said I had brought good luck, that Ethan's health was slowly improving. Others said it was a temporary illusion before the next disaster. Lady Gu remained distant. She never openly insulted me, but her cold silence spoke louder than words. She often invited noble ladies over for tea. I was never included. Ethan noticed. "You're bored, aren't you?" "Not really," I lied. He closed the book he was reading and said, "You've never been to the garden behind the West Hall, have you?" "No." "Then come." He insisted on pushing his own wheelchair, though I tried to help. The West Garden was vast, filled with peach blossoms, bamboo groves, and winding paths that shimmered under sunlight. "It's beautiful," I breathed. "This was my mother's favorite place when she was young," he said. "She rarely comes now." He looked toward the distance, eyes thoughtful. Then, after a pause, he added, "Yulon, if one day I can walk again, I'll take you to see the sea." I turned to him, startled. "The sea? You've never seen it, have you?" "No." He smiled faintly. "Then that's our promise." The spring wind brushed through the peach blossoms, scattering pale petals over his lap. For a moment, it felt as though fate had softened, just a little. Rumors spread like wildfire through the mansion in the Gu residence. They said I brought misfortune, that ever since I arrived, the household had been uneasy. It started when Ethan suddenly fainted during a rainstorm. That day he had insisted on teaching me calligraphy. His fingers guided mine when his breath suddenly hitched. "Lord Goo," I cried out. He collapsed before I could catch him. I shouted for help until my voice cracked. By the time the physician arrived, his face was as white as paper. Lady Goo rushed in, her expression cold and sharp. "What happened?" He fainted while writing," I stammered. She turned on me like a knife. "And you did nothing to stop it?" Ever since you entered this house, he's been getting worse. Are you trying to kill him?" Her words struck deeper than any blade. The servants bowed their heads, not daring to speak. The physician said it was just an old illness, worsened by exhaustion. But no one believed him. For 3 days, Ethan didn't wake. I sat beside his bed, refusing to sleep. April whispered that I should eat something, but I couldn't swallow a single bite. I just held Ethan's hand, praying silently that he would wake up. At dawn on the 4th day, his fingers twitched. When his eyes finally opened, I broke down completely. "You're awake," I sobbed. "You scared me to death." He blinked at me, his voice hoarse. "Why are you crying? I'm not dead yet." Even then, he managed to smile. Lady Goo entered soon after. She saw me sitting there, eyes swollen from tears. Her expression softened just a little. "You may stay," she said. Ethan slowly recovered, but peace didn't last. One afternoon while he rested, a servant burst into my courtyard with a sealed envelope. "Second, madam," she gasped. "Lady Goo demands you explain this." Confused, I followed her to the main hall. On the table lay an opened letter, written in a woman's hand. "If he truly loves her, why not let him go? You will only bring him pain." Lady Goo's face was pale with rage. "Do you deny this?" "I've never seen that letter before," I said firmly. "Lies," snapped a maid. "I saw April deliver it." April fell to her knees, terrified. "No, madam, I swear, I didn't." "Enough," Lady Goo interrupted. "Lock her up. As for you," she glared at me. "From now on you are not to enter his chambers." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Please, madam, it's not true. I would never—" "Silence. Your face may be innocent, but your heart is vile. If my son worsens again, I'll have you sent back to the Wong family." They dragged April away. That night, the courtyard was silent except for the wind. I sat alone, hugging the camellia pot to my chest. Its leaves had begun to yellow. "Don't wither too," I whispered. "You're all I have left." 2 days later, Ethan came to see me. He looked thinner, paler, but still steady. "Yulan," he said softly, "was that letter yours?" "No, I swear it wasn't." He studied my face for a long time, then sighed. "I believe you." Those 3 words shattered what was left of my restraint. Tears spilled down my cheeks. "Then why didn't you tell your mother?" "Because she wouldn't believe me either," he said quietly, "and because sometimes silence is the only way to protect someone." "Protect me?" "Yes. If I argue, it will only make things worse. For now, let them think what they want." His calmness made me ache even more. "You're too gentle," I whispered. "That's why they hurt you." "And you're too kind," he replied. "That's why they'll hurt you too." Chapter 3. The following months passed like a quiet storm. April was released after 2 weeks, thin and frightened but alive. She never said who framed us, though I knew. It was Claire. She had written once to visit, bringing silk and gifts for Lady Goo, all the while watching me with that same mocking smile. When she left, whispers returned. "Second madam is illiterate, useless, barren. Even if the third master lives, he won't love her long." I no longer cried. Instead, I learned to smile politely and bow my head at the right times. At night, I still practiced writing with Ethan. He taught me patiently, his voice gentle as the flickering candlelight. One evening, I looked at him and said, "You're the only one who treats me like a person." He chuckled. "That's because you are one." I wanted to say, "You're the only one who sees me," but the words caught in my throat. The camellia had bloomed that spring, tiny red petals trembling in the breeze. "See?" I told him proudly. "It survived just like us." "Then promise me," he said softly, "even if one day I'm gone, you'll keep living too." "Don't say that." "Promise." "I promise." It was the summer of our 2nd year of marriage when disaster struck again. A fire broke out in the West Wing during the night. Servants screamed. Chaos erupted. I rushed out barefoot, searching for Ethan. Smoke filled the corridors, stinging my eyes. When I finally found him, he was trapped beneath a fallen beam. Without thinking, I threw myself forward, trying to lift it. "Yulan, don't!" he shouted hoarsely. "Get out!" "No!" The fire roared around us. The air burned in my lungs. By the time help arrived, my arms were scorched, and Ethan had passed out again. We were both pulled out alive. For 3 days, I drifted in and out of fevered dreams. When I woke, Ethan was beside me, his hand wrapped in bandages. "You saved me," he whispered. "You saved me first," I replied. "Back then, when you taught me to write my name." He laughed weakly. "Then we're even." But we both knew that wasn't true. The physician said his condition had stabilized, perhaps even improved. Lady Gu stood by the door, silent. Then she bowed slightly to me. "Thank you, daughter-in-law." It was the first time she had ever called me that. Outside, the camellia bloomed again, lush and radiant, brighter than ever. Ethan sat beneath the eaves, sunlight soft on his face. "Yulan," he said, "do you remember our promise? About the sea?" "Yes. When I can walk again, we'll go." I smiled. "Then I'll wait for that day." He reached out, brushing my fingertips. "And I'll live for it." The wind carried the scent of summer blossoms across the courtyard. For the first time in years, my heart felt light. Not because fate had changed, but because we had chosen to live, despite it. After the fire, Ethan's health grew strangely steady. The physicians called it a miracle. But he knew better. His pulse was still faint, and the poison that had entered his body years ago hadn't disappeared, only quieted. One evening he said, "Yulan, the antidote must still exist somewhere in the capital. My friend in the Ministry of Justice owes me a favor. I'll ask him to help." "Will it be dangerous?" "Everything in this city is." He smiled faintly, as though danger were an old friend. From that day, strangers began visiting the Gu residence. Doctors, scholars, even wandering monks. They came with herbs, scrolls, and theories. Each time Ethan took their medicine, I watched in silence, afraid to hope. But one morning, after yet another bitter dose, he coughed up blood. "Stop this," I cried. "You're killing yourself. If I stop, I'll die anyway." His voice was steady, eyes clear. "Don't you understand? I'm not searching for the antidote only to live longer. I'm searching for a reason to live at all." The words struck me like thunder. That night, I stayed awake by candlelight, grinding herbs and praying to every god I knew. Outside, the camellia bloomed again, petals glowing faintly under the moon. Life clung on, no matter how fragile. A month later, a letter arrived, addressed to Ethan from the palace. When he read it, his expression darkened. "What is it?" I asked. "It's from the Imperial Hospital," he said quietly. "They've found a record of a poison identical to mine." "That's good, isn't it?" "No, it means someone wanted me dead." The handwriting was familiar, sharp, and deliberate. He folded the letter, hiding it from me. "This has nothing to do with you, Yulan. Don't lie to me." He hesitated, then said, "The Emperor's younger brother once competed with me in the imperial exams. The poison that wounded me came from a cup of tea offered by his attendant that day." "Then it wasn't an accident." "No. Will you tell the Emperor? If I do, it will destroy families, and perhaps ours with them." I felt cold all over. That night, I couldn't sleep. When I finally rose to fetch water, I saw a shadow slip past the courtyard wall. It was too fast to catch, but the next morning, the sealed box containing Ethan's medicine was gone. 2 days later, palace guards arrived. By imperial decree, Lord Gu is to enter the palace for questioning. Lady Gu nearly fainted. "Why? What has he done?" "The Emperor wishes to verify certain rumors about treason." The words hit me like ice. Treason? That's impossible. But it was useless to protest. They took him away before I could reach him. That night, I sat beside his desk, staring at the half-written letter he'd left behind. "If I do not return, please bury me beside the camellia." Days turned into weeks. No news came from the palace. The Gu residence was under watch. No one was allowed to leave. April tried to comfort me, but I could see the fear in her eyes. Then one morning, a courier arrived with a single scroll sealed in red wax. It bore the imperial seal. My hands shook as I broke it open. Ethan Gu, found guilty of deceiving the throne and tampering with forbidden medicines. Sentence: exile to the western border. Immediate departure. I couldn't breathe. Lady Gu collapsed in tears. I stood frozen, unable to speak. That evening, when they came to escort him away, I ran through the courtyard barefoot. "Ethan!" He turned, his wrists bound, his face calm. "Yulan, don't cry. I'll go with you." "No, you must stay. You promised to take me to see the sea." He smiled weakly. "Then wait for me at the shore." They dragged him away before I could reach him. The next morning, the camellia dropped all its petals. A year passed. Rumors said Ethan had died on the road. Others said he'd been executed in secret. I refused to believe any of it. Every morning, I watered the empty camellia pot, whispering, "You'll bloom again when he returns." One day, April ran in, breathless. "Miss, the palace has lifted the charges. Lord Gu has been pardoned." I nearly dropped the watering can. "What? He's coming home." When the carriage finally arrived at dusk, I saw a figure step down slowly, leaning on a cane, thinner than before, but alive. I froze, unable to move. He looked up, eyes searching until they found me. Then he smiled, just as he had on our wedding day. "Yulan," he whispered, "I'm home." I ran to him, tears blurring everything. He caught me in his arms, whispering into my hair, "It's over." "No," I said, smiling through my tears, "it's just beginning." That night, we sat under the camellia tree, new blossoms glowing faintly in the moonlight. "You waited," he said. "You promised," I replied. "Then let's go see the sea." He took my hand, warm and steady, the scent of summer flowers in the air. And for the first time in my life, I truly believed that love could rewrite fate. Chapter 4. It took another month before Ethan was strong enough to travel. One morning he came to me with a small wooden box in his hands. "Yulan," he said softly, "the physician says my legs are almost healed. I can walk now, with help." I looked at him, hardly daring to breathe. "Truly," he smiled. "Come see for yourself." He took a cautious step forward, then another. His movements were stiff, trembling, but real. I ran to him, tears spilling freely. "You did it, we did it." That afternoon we packed light, only enough for a few days' journey. Lady Gu didn't stop us. She simply said, "Go, you've both earned it." April cried as she saw us off. "When you reach the sea, bring back a shell for me." I laughed through my tears. "I will." The road to the coast was long, but every mile felt like a heartbeat returning to life. When we finally stood at the edge of the sea, I froze. The horizon stretched endlessly before us. Waves crashed against the rocks, white foam glinting under the sunlight. Ethan reached out, fingers brushing mine. "Beautiful, isn't it?" "I didn't know the world could be this big," I whispered. He looked at me, his eyes soft and full of quiet joy. Neither did I, until now. We sat by the shore until the sun dipped into gold. The wind tangled my hair, and for once I didn't care. "When I first met you," Ethan said, "I thought you were fragile, but you've carried me through fire and storm. And you taught me how to live." He smiled faintly. "Then we've saved each other." The sea breeze carried our laughter into the distance. That night, Ethan lit a lantern and placed it on the water. "It's an old custom," he explained. "They say if you let a wish drift out to sea, the tide will bring back the answer." "What did you wish for?" He paused. "For time." "Time?" "Enough time to grow old beside you." I stared at the glowing lantern floating farther and farther away. "Then I'll wish for the same." We released another lantern together, watching as both lights drifted apart, then slowly found each other again on the waves. He looked at me and smiled. Even the sea knows how to keep a promise. But the next morning, I found him sitting by the window, his face pale. "You didn't sleep?" I asked. "I had a dream," he murmured. "In it, you were calling my name, but I couldn't reach you." I held his hand tightly. "Dreams lie. You're here." He smiled faintly. "Then let's not waste what's left." Ethan's health began to waver again after we returned from the sea. The physician said it was the old poison resurfacing, slow, stubborn, incurable. He grew weaker by the day. Yet he never stopped smiling. One evening, I found him writing a letter beneath the lamplight. "Who's it for?" I asked. "For you." He handed me the folded paper, his handwriting faint but steady. "If one day I'm gone, live as if I'm still here. Grow the camellias every spring, read under the sunlight, and when the sea calls your name, go." Tears blurred the ink before I could finish reading. "Don't talk like that," I said, trembling. "You promised you'd live." He reached out, brushing away my tears. "I am living, right now with you." That night, he asked me to play a psalm on the old zither in the study. I barely knew how, but he guided my hands, just like when he'd first taught me to write. The melody was clumsy, but he closed his eyes and smiled. "Perfect," he whispered. "It sounds like home." He passed away quietly before dawn. His hand was still in mine, warm until the very last breath. The sky outside turned the color of pale rose, and for a moment I thought I heard the sea again. Ethan Gu was buried under the camellia tree, as he had once wished. Every spring I planted new seeds beside it, white, red, pink. People said I had gone mad, living alone in the quiet Gu residence. But I didn't feel alone. Sometimes when the wind brushed past, I could almost hear his voice. Soft, calm, steady. Years later, the emperor himself cleared all false accusations against him, granting him posthumous honor. But to me, he had never needed a title. He was my teacher, my husband, the man who taught me that love wasn't about chains, it was about release. On the day I turned 40, I finally went back to the sea. The same waves, the same endless horizon. Only now, I carried a box of camellia petals with me. I opened the lid and let the wind take them. They scattered like crimson butterflies across the surf. "Ethan," I whispered. I kept my promise. The tide swept in, soft like a kiss against my feet. And as the sun rose, lighting the sky in gold, I smiled, because somewhere, somehow, I felt him smiling back.